Peace and love, family, and well, welcome back to another Sunday Hope and Healing session. I'm Royce Fletcher Thomason, and I'm here to offer encouragement, hope, good vibrations, and of course, healing, which we do through a methodology referred to as Transcending the Matrix, which is really a holistic approach to healing. It looks at the totality of a person's beingness, realizing that we're not just physical bodies. We have physical bodies, but we're not physical bodies. We are spiritual beings ultimately, and things that are going on with us spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and otherwise impact the things that show up in our lives, including manifestations of our physical health. I maintain that nothing that happens, this world, if you will, is not a causal plane. It is an effect plane. It's a place where you see effects, but the root cause is somewhere deeper, right? It's somewhere deeper. At any rate, I don't know how long I'll actually be on today. Popping on kind of as a check in. I like to be able to check in sometimes. Greetings to you, Jennifer. Good to see you as always. Bountiful blessings your way as well, my sister. Um, I live in Tampa, Florida now. Originally from Detroit. Shout out to the D. What up, though? And a few years ago, moved to Tampa by way of Houston. Curly Conscious King, brother, good to see you in the space as well. Love, light, and blessings in abundance in your direction also. And so uh, I endeavor to live as consciously as possible. Um, you all know that if you've caught me here before. And I try to live from a holistic perspective in terms of the music that I listen to, the things that I watch, the way that I entertain myself, the things that I place in my body, and all of that. And somewhere along my journey, and I'm not imposing this upon anybody else, I'm just saying this has been my own journey. Um, in my journey, I was actually in seminary at the time, working on a Master of Divinity. This was before I would transfer to another seminary that I'd end up getting kicked out of on the basis of the official paperwork said does not demonstrate a promise for ministry. Anyway, that was back in the 90s. Still in the 90s. In February of 1998, for Lent, I decided to give up meat. Uh, I had been a very, 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 very avid meat eater uh, prior to that, and I gave it up in February of 1998 and just never went back. And so yet I still love food, and I do eat well, by the way. Um, and so anyway, in Tampa Bay here, where I am now, I came across on social media. I think it was on Instagram. Uh, Black Book of Tampa. No, excuse me, Green Tampa Bay Green Book, or Green Book of Tampa Bay, something like that. So those of you who may not be familiar, perhaps you saw the movie, The Green Book. But for those of you who are not familiar with the history of the United States of America, where I'm broadcasting from, um, very similar to apartheid in South Africa, where my niece lives. Um, we had Jim Crow and de facto segregation. And in the South, there were a lot of places. There were places that were called sundown towns or sundown counties, where if you were a melanated person, you definitely didn't want to be caught after dark. Um, but also, there were places where it just was not legal uh, for us to patronize. It wasn't legal for us to eat or to sleep. We just weren't allowed. We weren't welcome there. And so there was document constructed, a book constructed that included places, primarily Black-owned businesses, places where it was safe for melanated people to stay a night if they're traveling, or to go eat in different things. And the cover of the book was green, and it was called the Green Book. And so I came across here in Tampa, since I've been in Tampa, something called the Tampa Bay. I don't remember now if it's Tampa Green Book or Green Book at Tampa Bay, one or the other. And from there, I came across this one particular restaurant called Nana's Restaurant and Juice Bar, I think is the full name. I'm looking at her husband right now, actually. Nana's Restaurant and Juice Bar. And when I see people who appear to me based on, and you can't always guess a person's consciousness based on their appearance, most people would not necessarily gather what my consciousness is just by looking at me on the surface. Um, Unless I'm wearing a shirt like what I'm wearing right now, like the DNA, the tree of life kind of wrapped up in each other. But when I would see a person here in Tampa, a lot of times I'll ask people, where are the conscious people here? A lot of times people would say, I don't know, I've been looking too, or they direct me to St. Petersburg, just on the other side of the bay. But anyway, I learned about the existence of this place, Nana's Restaurant and Juice Bar, which is also, I don't remember if they're vegan or if they're vegetarian. I'm not vegan, but I'm vegetarian. Um, and I would patronize this place, and it's a place. Thank you for the compliment on the T-shirt, Curly Conscious King, and greetings, Ketrin. Good to see you here today as well. And this was a place where, seemed like my tribe would be, right? Um, and So it's a place that I appreciated. I could go there and get food that worked for me. I could go there and get some prepared sea moss and stuff like that. Um, and they were, just kind of what felt to me like just genuinely good people there. Uh, and I happened to have been on Instagram a couple of days ago, earlier this week, and saw um, a video that Nana had posted that they're being shut down, or that they're at least temporarily closed. And so this place is in a kind of a historic place in Tampa, referred to as Ybor City. Ybor City is actually where I go to listen to house music on the first Fridays of the month, and dance to house music on the first Fridays of the month. And it's kind of an eclectic place. It's an interesting place. It's where I can go get incense there. It's where I got the Nag Champa oil that I'm wearing right now. That's in Ybor City, and Nana's is in Ybor, and um, where it was initially just like a white building, they painted it. It's very colorful and beautiful. Um, they cleared out the back. There's a nice patio back there, and they sometimes have events there, even um, little concerts where they feature like local people, local independent artists. And, very much about giving to the community and supporting the community. I kind of wish I could get her on the live, but I pulled up like right at 1 o'clock. She was outside, but she's inside now. Um, and I don't want to interrupt the live, like going searching. She may very well be cooking right now, so probably is, in fact. At any rate, So she was on this video. Greetings to you, Versandra. Good to see you again today. Be back with you today. And thank you on the t-shirt. By the way, I only put it on like right before the Secrets to Aging Gracefully session last night, and then I took it off afterwards. So I'm not wearing old dirty smelly t-shirt. Anyway, um in Versandra's what she does with optimal living retreats, and what is the full name, Versandra? If you can put it in the comments. Optimal living retreats, and I feel like I'm leaving a word out. She had this 3-week series on secrets to aging gracefully, and I was the person who presented yesterday, and we did DNA activation. And so I actually bought this t-shirt specifically to wear to that, because you see it's got the DNA and it's got the tree kind of flowering out, and then it's got like roots at the bottom. I don't know how well you can see that. Anyway, getting back to the thing that I was starting to say a moment ago, on Nana's broadcast, she was saying that they're being closed down based on like change of use stuff. What it really seems like it's ultimately boiling down to is gentrification, that they're moving her out. They said that she's got to, provide some, some architectural plans and all of this stuff. And the reality is that she didn't actually change anything to the building from an architectural, structural layout standpoint. She, I believe that the cooking might even happen in a food truck outside the place. Don't quote me on that, though. I'm not sure. James Wade, good to see you. Checking in from Atlanta. Good to have you in the space today. I know we've got a couple of people from Atlanta. We've got Virginia. We've got, we've got quite a bit of Georgia. We've got Columbus. I'm here in Tampa. I'm not sure who else is here or where they're checking in from, but if you would, just drop a note about where you're tuning in from, if you would. But anyway, they suddenly had to close down. This is a small family-owned business, a mom and pop place. She and her husband, uh, own this place, and they don't own the building. They're renting the building, and it looks like they're just kind of being pushed out, um, to, like I said, gentrification, unfortunately. And so there's a collaborative effort, which he also mentioned on the live today, um, at another location called WeVegan. And so that's going on here today. And I wanted to broadcast from here. I had never been here before. So I didn't know exactly what it was going to be like. So I'm still sitting in my car. My door's open. My foot keeps hitting the seat thing, so the seat keeps moving back. But I'm broadcasting from my car. But something I do want to speak to. I said earlier, we sometimes do healing on here, utilizing the methodology called Transcending the Matrix. And the inspiration behind the name of this methodology came from the actual movie series, The Matrix. That the things that we see aren't as they actually are. That this is the way that we're experiencing life is as an illusion, whereas in the ancient Sanskrit, the term was Maya, which really means that things aren't as they seem. In the Christian context, there is reference to a veil, and also about us seeing through a glass dimly. We're not seeing things as they actually are. We're seeing something that appears real, but what we're seeing isn't what's actually real. And what's really largely at the heart of the Transcending the Matrix healing modality is seeing beyond the illusion. The reality is that everything that God made is good. If it isn't good, then God didn't make it. And if God didn't make it, it isn't real. God made wellness. God did not make sickness. And since God didn't make sickness, and um, sickness isn't something that God made, so it isn't actually real. It is just an absence of wellness. And so, in the methodology, we look at all of the things that are covering the wellness, all the things that are covering the homeostasis. We see this as kind of a disguise, if you will, right? A disguise that somebody's wearing, really, in a way, perhaps to support us in our decision to be spiritually conscious beings. We're in a disguise to see if we can see beyond the disguise that they've lovingly put on for our benefit. And that as we see beyond the disguise and we see the truth of who it is that they actually are, then the sickness and the disease falls away, right? Anyway, I go into that in a lot more detail in the actual training and initiation, but this was a similar concept as what was in the movie series The Matrix, right? That none of the stuff that they're actually dealing with was real. It was all in their mind, right? But a thing that was also a key aspect of The Matrix was that there was a systemic battle that they were engaged in, or there was a battle against the system, right? There was a battle against those who were um, had essentially taken over, and those machinations. I use that word pointedly. And so, in a similar way, um, although we're dealing with systems that are designed by humans, whereas the systems in the Matrix were designed by machines. Um, we're largely living in a world nowadays where it's moving in a direction of being much more mechanical than human. I wholeheartedly advocate for STEM in education, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. However, that's all left brain stuff. And the left brain matters, it's important. But also equally important is the humanities, that which keeps us in touch with our humanness, the arts and things of that nature, the arts, philosophy, things that have us thinking deeply about things. And so, there's whereas a lot of the healing work that we focus on is on an individual level, and what people are experiencing individually, a key aspect is also things that are going on systemically, things that are going on societally. And so I feel a little bit passionate about this whole thing and wanting to support uh, nanas today, and kind of letting this be uh, to a degree a focal point of our broadcast today. And uh-oh, what just happened? We got notifications popping up on my phone. Hope it didn't pause the broadcast. But I really want to speak to those of us who are consider ourselves reasonably conscious, to be intentional about equanimity, egalitarian principles. It's easy for the little person to be deleted and erased in favor of the big systems. Even as I was driving over here, for whatever reason, the movie You've Got Mail came to mind. You remember that movie You've Got Mail with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan? And Meg Ryan was the proprietor of this small bookstore, and and Tom Hanks was kind of responsible for getting rid of her small bookstore in favor of this very large bookstore chain. Her place had character. It actually was concerned with giving to the people, making, uh, you know, it was a passion of hers. It was a passion of hers for people to be exposed to good literature, for children to be exposed to good literature and reading, not just a business. The business was an aspect, but it was about giving to people, helping people to be more uh, as human as possible, if you will. All right. Shout out to people who still read actual books rather than just stuff on devices. There's something about turning the actual pages of a book that's special and wonderful. Um, but also, I was thinking about on the way over here. I was thinking about a place that when I was in seminary in Indianapolis, there was a small private-owned coffee house. I love this place. It was called Gina's Daily Grind. Gina's Daily Grind. I thought that was the coolest name. The person's name was Gina, who was the proprietor, obviously. But it was called Gina's Daily Grind. And it was actually at Gina's Daily Grind that I became introduced to Sweet Honey in the Rock. Have you all heard of Sweet Honey in the Rock? I don't know if they're still releasing music or not, but it's a group of women uh, who do conscious a cappella songs. And it was actually Valentine's Day, 1997. I was there at Gina's Daily Grind. They would have spoken word there sometimes and stuff. And on this particular Valentine's Day, they were open late. Well, they closed, and we were all just still hanging out there, just having a grand old time hanging out there. And there was a group of ladies who came. The place had actually been closed for a fairly considerable amount of time, but she let them in. She let them in, and they had actually just left a Sweet Honey in the Rock concert. And then they were looking for somewhere to grab a bite to eat and to talk about their experience at the concert, at the Sweet Honey in the Rock concert. And they actually they bought some CDs. This was back in the days of CDs because it was in the 90s. And that was my first time actually being introduced to them. And so I would later in Detroit end up seeing them at a concert at Detroit Unity Temple, and certainly bought quite a few of their CDs and stuff. Um, but at any rate, um, I think about that and how there aren't a whole lot of like independently owned coffee houses anymore. There's Starbucks, and there's that, but I mean, that's much more of a commercial thing. It doesn't have that human feeling element. It doesn't have that same kind of sense of community, which I really believe is just critically important. It's critically important. The way that we as a society grow, and technology is wonderful, but the way that we as a society grow is in our common unity. In our common unity, there are so many things that we use to divide us based on skin tone, based on language, based on religion, based on so many different things, based on socioeconomic status, levels of education, gender, uh, sexual orientation, religion. There's so many different things that we use to divide ourselves. And in the process of that, small numbers of people capitalize on that and even feed into that to keep us separate from one another, or appearing separate from one another, because the reality is we're all one. We're all one. The rain showers upon the just and the unjust alike. We all have the same basic fundamental needs. We're all breathing in the same air, right? We're alike in many more ways than we're different. And while I do wholeheartedly advocate for people finding their tribe and being able to experience the sense of family that comes with being with one's tribe, I also wholeheartedly believe in the oneness of all humanity. In fact, the oneness of all creation. And I believe that there's a tremendous amount of value in that. However, there are small numbers of people who are in positions of what we would call power. I say what we would call power because that isn't what I would call power. What I call power is not what you do, not influence that you have over other people, or what you can yield or wield rather over other people. To me, power is an internal quality, an internal quality that allows us to actually be able to overcome our own lower nature, to dominate and master our own lower nature. Because we a lot of times get externally focused, we put a focus on dominating somebody else or something else. So we take this idea of having dominion over the earth as having a sense of entitlement to do whatever we want with it rather than righteously steward it. And so, when with that mentality, it's a very it's a very lack-based mentality. It's funny that those who seemingly have the most have this lack-based mentality and try to hoard and keep them to themselves rather than share amongst all of us so that we can all be blessed and all benefit. Hmm. It's a very warped and skewed way of seeing things and operating from my perspective. Um, but at any rate, if you all don't already, I definitely want to encourage you to support small businesses, to support mom and pop places. You know, I'm not saying don't go to places, the big places, but I tell you what, this was also in the 90s. There was a book that I was looking for, and Amazon wasn't as big as it is now, but they were still most certainly in operation. They just mainly were in the book business at the time. And obviously Barnes and Noble was a thing, and Borders was still around at the time. And this book I couldn't find it anywhere. They couldn't get it at Borders, they couldn't get it at Barnes and Noble, they couldn't get it at Amazon. Not only did they not have it in any of those places, but they couldn't get it in any of those places. And um and I was able to get a hold of the book. Even though these super large places couldn't get it. There was a small mom and pop place in downtown Farmington, Michigan, that they got a hold of that book for me. And so there's the large places have certain things, and there's a certain appeal to them. And I certainly shop on Amazon, and I certainly bought books at Barnes and Noble. Um, but there's a certain quality that the mom and pop places offer that the other places just don't. There's a certain je ne sais quoi, if you will. There's a certain uh, way that they service and support the community in ways that others don't, because they're not even part of the community, right? And can't relate to the things that are going on inside of the community, don't necessarily have a people mindset so much as a profit mindset. And it's not that profit is bad, it just need not be deified from my perspective, from my humble perspective. Um, but at any rate, um, I'm going to shut it down pretty soon. But since I'm wearing this T-shirt, um, and this concept of like tree of life has been something that's kind of been a theme a little bit this weekend, um, or at least it was yesterday. I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday, via Messenger. I don't know how we got into the conversation that I ordered this T-shirt because it had the DNA on it, but I liked that it had the tree here. Um, it's kind of brought up a theme of the tree of life for me. And if you read in the Bible, most people associate the tree of life with something that Adam and Eve were banned from, and thus the rest of humanity banned from, because Adam and Eve ate from the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which people somehow got the idea there was an apple. I don't know where that idea came from. It's probably something that was just depicted in art in the context of a fruit, but nowhere in the entire Bible is the word apple ever actually mentioned. The fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's cool to have the knowledge of good. We run into the problem when we start having the experiential knowledge of evil. Mm. Or our perspective. Talked earlier about the Maya, the illusion, the matrix, that things are not as they seem. And so all things are working together for our good, right? All things are working together for our good. And it's our judgments that get us into trouble with situations. At any rate, it said that in the first couple chapters of Genesis, it's telling the story of creation, right? More specifically, in the context of Earth and humans living on Earth, and everything was already here before the next thing came that needed that particular thing, right? And it said that humans were placed in this garden, in this paradise, and to feel free to feed upon anything in this paradise, in this garden, if you will. And then it said that there's another tree, which it doesn't actually say is in the garden, but it said there's this other tree, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Do not eat of that tree, because the day you eat of that tree, that's going to take you out. And so our stress, our worry, our anxiety, our resistance to what is, are the things that actually take away, they cause our life force to be depleted. They're the things that make us sick. You ever heard of worrying yourself sick? Yeah, that happens to us. There are things that are processed in our brains that end up and in our minds, and not just our brains, and in our minds, that end up registering within our body, and then create states of dis-ease within the body temple, right? So anyway, as it says, they ate of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and then they were banned from being able to eat of the tree of life. Mm. But that's not the only place that the Bible talks about the tree of life. It also talks about it in the book of Proverbs is one of the wisdom writings in the Bible. And in Proverbs chapter 3, it says that wisdom is a tree of life. So if wisdom is the tree of life, then the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, as opposed to just the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good. Oh man, there's somewhere I could really go with that. I'm going to try to hold my mule a little bit. Then the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is foolishness. Okay, and so when we engage in foolishness, we suck away our life force, right? Um, when we're not in right thinking, we're taken away from our life force, where we can actually turn unto wisdom and feed upon wisdom, which gives us life. All right. And so I encourage you, if you haven't already, or if you had, go check out Proverbs chapter 3 and just read through that. Also, it's mentioned in Proverbs chapter 11, where it says in Proverbs chapter 11 that righteousness is it talks about the tree of life there. and says that righteousness is the fruit of the tree of life. So wisdom is the tree of life, and righteousness is the fruit thereof, right? And so as we engage in what is righteousness really? Righteousness has to do not simply with our behavior, but how we're thinking. With how we're thinking, how we're using our consciousness, how we're directing our consciousness. Thoughts held in mind create after their kind. Energy follows consciousness. Wherever it is that you're directing your consciousness, you're going to actually end up developing neural pathways that are going to fire together in your brain. And then the way that that's going to end up showing up is that your body is then going to respond in kind to that, whether we're talking about your physical body or your body of affairs. The things that show up in your life are going to end up responding to that. All right. Also talks about tree of life in the book of Revelation too. uh, I know it's in the 22nd chapter. It might be in the 21st too, but I know it's in the 22nd chapter for sure as well. But anyway, I just want to encourage you all today as I'm getting ready to close down, to as much as possible, guard your heart with all diligence. That's on the bracelet that I'm wearing. Um, and I'm not just talking about who you get in relationship with, but the things that you allow to come into your heart, the things that you allow to come into your heart, the anger, the bitterness, the resentment, the hostility, all of that, all of those things take away from us. And we end up having those things based on a certain way of thinking, based on a certain perspective. And the perspective that we have is always a limited perspective that we're operating based on limited information that we have. There's always more that's there that we're not seeing. At the end of the day, it's all good. It's all good that's unfolding for you and that's available to you. We just have to find our way to that. All right. And so in this context, I wanted to encourage you to seek the good, to seek the good in other people and to seek the good in yourself. That doesn't mean to let anybody walk over you or allow anybody to mistreat you, because sometimes boundaries are necessary. Boundaries are important. But seek to be generous with other people. Seek to be generous in how you show up and who it is that you show up for. That's why I'm here at Nanas today. It's been a very busy weekend for me. I would have been very content not going live today and just laying in the bed or on the couch, chilling and relaxing. I could have used the rest, no doubt about it. But since this pop-up was happening today, they've been out of business, pretty much all week and don't know when they'll be in business again. This is a family. I just believe there's value in coming and supporting. Plus, the food's good. I believe in supporting what is supportive of what supports me, right? Um, I saw something. That, on social media, and it just had letters that said IDFWP. Well, I'm not going to try to remember it. I have to do too much mental work. When I saw the letters, I immediately knew what it meant. Um, and what it was essentially saying is I don't mess with people who mess with people who don't mess with me or something like that. Mess with wasn't really the word, but you can read between the lines that I don't F with. Um, Conversely, I, I deal with people who support what I deal with. Um, and so I'm happy to be here supporting uh, Nana, as well as WeVegan, the proprietor of WeVegan, who's made this space available for them today in this collaboration. And so I'm gonna get ready to go in here and have some of this food. Um, I do want to encourage you all to keep your head held high, to keep your heart pure, and and to do good to yourself and to do good by those who do good by you. You know, a lot of times we tend to do better to treat people better who are wanting some approval from, who are withholding it from us, or giving it to us only on conditions, who are manipulating us really. But we're not always as quick to give the love in the places where the love is being given to us. Well, I'm about to give some love to Nanas and WeVegan. And I encourage you all to, as an expression of self love, greetings, Rhonda Bird, as an expression of self love, to support that which supports you, to give energy to that which gives energy to you, to put your dollars behind that which is going to come back to you and that which nourishes and supports you in some way, just as an expression of self love, because you deserve that, right? It makes sense to me. Anyway, if you all don't already know, we've got a Transcending the Matrix class coming up this next month, the 17th through the 19th. That's a Friday through a Sunday. It's an all-day event, 3-day event. I promise you, your life will not be the same once you've done it. Um, it is very much a life-changing experience. And I'm glad to share this with people. I try, when I'm blessed with certain information and things that empower me and bless me, I endeavor to share that with other folks so they can be blessed by it too. Anyway, I'm about to go ahead and get some of this food, get out of my car, and enjoy what Nana and WeVegan has to offer. And until we see each other again as we endeavor to enter into the sustainable state of supreme satisfaction, I bid you adieu with peace and love. Catch you next time.